Thank you. I want to welcome everyone to our July 18th meeting. Please note that the council is in full attendance. And the first item on our agenda is items from council, and then we'll move into citizens' communication. So first, though, any items from council?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
I had a constituent called, and I went by a while ago. There is a transit stop on the corner of Glendale and Lova, right in front of the residence home for the elderly. And she says several times on Sundays, she's gone by there, and there's elderly people sitting there waiting for the bus. And she says, could we please help and take care of putting a cover over that
Okay.
one area?
Glendale and Lova.
There's a stand and there's a trash can, but there's no cover, and she says usually the elderly people, when they're waiting there, it's just a little too hot for them.
Absolutely. We'll look at
Okay.
that.
Mr. Mayor, we had a large storm on Saturday that resulted in a lot of trees, limbs down and debris, and I was wondering if the city was going through and picking up, particularly out-of-cycle limb pickup.
Yes, good evening. Saturday evening, we did have a storm. We've got several trees down all over town. We've had calls from North Crest, all over the south side of town, Middletown. So temporarily, we are picking up. If you've got storm debris that was caused by the storm, whether it was a big tree or just some limbs out of a tree, you can call the solid waste office, 485-3220. Or if the phones are, if you can't get through, 485-3230, which is the environmental office, and we'll get you on schedule. You can also go online and fill out a form. We've got an online form now for brush and bulky pickup. And just make sure you label it storm. We're trying to take care of storm debris. We're not pulling off of our regular schedule. We're going to continue that as well. But we want to try and get it picked up here over the next couple of weeks. And it's a scheduled thing, so we're not going to come immediately. Right now, we're scheduling, I think we've got 15 for Thursday. And so we'll let you know when we'll be there to give you time to get it put out.
But they're not going to be charged the out-of-cycle fee?
Temporarily, no.
From the storm standpoint?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For on a temporary basis. We'll get back to that, but we'll give them a week or two to try and get most of this cleaned up.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate the flexibility. Mr. Halapasco?
Yes, I see Mike Walsh is in the audience. I'm chairman of the MPO. He serves on the MPO with me. He's with TxDOT. And recently, could you approach and tell us what we're doing or attempting to do? We're trying to get more access points to the Guadalupe River. And because of what they call 77, we call 463, the bridge work there. Go ahead, let me.
Yes, sir. So as many of you may know, we're doing a widening on US 77 over the Guadalupe River, northwest side of Victoria. As part of that project, we had to do some bank modifications for a temporary bridge so we could construct the new bridges. As a result of that, we're needing to do some bank stabilization. So we're trying to incorporate an improved access point for people trying to get down the river, not just kayakers, but fishermen or whoever. And so that's ongoing. We're going to do that in-house with state forces.
Thank you so much.
And you
thank
got,
you.
Mike, you got my email?
I did, yes, sir. Thank you very much for that. Hopefully that'll all come together and we'll work with them to make a great spot for folks to access the river there.
Thank you. Looking
Thank you.
forward to seeing it. And, you
Thank
know,
you so
when
much.
the time is appropriate, we need to thank some of the private people who have donated resources.
Absolutely.
We'll put it to that.
There's so many people have had a hand in this over time. It started out as a simple 2 access points in the park. It's not only, you know what it's grown to now, but others have taken it on. And so I'm stand back and watch them go, and they're doing a great job. They're going to have over 200 miles of paddling trails when it's all finished, including the San Antonio River, the Guadalupe River, Colorado River, and the bays and estuaries as well. Quite a nice project when it all gets done.
Thank you. Thank you. That's good. Looking forward to it. Anything else under items from council? Okay, we'll move into citizens' communication. I know we have one on the agenda first. I guess if everyone doesn't mind, we can do that first. Dr. Morgan, president of UHV, is here, and he requested to be on the agenda.
And before he starts talking, I just kind of like to do a reminder. In February, we discussed, continuing, moving forward with the Ben Wilson corridor. And we had lots of questions for Dr. Morgan and asked him to come back with a more detailed report, which he's doing tonight with Freeze and Nichols to give us, to answer your questions, but the detailed report. And so the next step after this report, and if we can get questions satisfied, then if there's a consensus of council to move forward, the next step would be to enter into a contract to move forward with this project with UHV. So,
Another thing, would you tell everybody how we get to this?
How do you switch our
how do you
procedure?
switch? Is it triple?
Triple on the scroll.
3 clicks.
3 clicks on the scroll
Thank
bar.
you, Jan. Everybody there? Just-
Some people did.
Okay.
It's not working for all of us, so give
it's
us
our
1 second. If not, I'll
All
just
right.
watch over here, so.
Well, we'll start with some listening, maybe. Good afternoon. I thank you very much for the opportunity to be back before you and giving you information about this Ben Wilson Corridor project that we've talked about now on several occasions. First and foremost, I'd like to remind you that this project began about 2 years ago with concern, the need for expansion of UHB, and the primary concern for the safety of students as we expand. As most of you know, we're sort of boxed in about the only direction that we can expand is to the east, and that crosses Ben Wilson. You've seen or begun to see the groundbreaking for our new student center and library that's going over there. I don't know whether you remember seeing the newspaper the day that we did the groundbreaking, but if you remember seeing that, the second article on the front page was the groundbreaking. The top article was a concern about pedestrian safety and a graph that showed that pedestrian safety in Victoria was worse than it was in the state or the nation. And so what we're actually very concerned about and continue to be concerned about is the safety of students trying to get from the academic side of the campus, literally, which is the west side, back and forth to the east side, which is what we're talking about tonight. So we've had a discussion with city staff, and we believe we've gotten all the questions gathered up that you asked the last time we visited. And I think all those will be answered in a report that you're about to receive. With me tonight is the Vice President for Administration and Finance at UHB, Wayne Barron, is back here. And then we also have from Freese and Nichols, Nick Sikava and Kevin St. Jacques and Ben Galvan, who are going to do a PowerPoint presentation about the project. And then when they finish with that, we have a handout for you that's a kind of a written report about the project. So if you'll give your attention to these gentlemen, they're going to make a PowerPoint presentation and talk about the project.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Mayor and councilors, thank you for allowing us some time to give you a little more clarification, refinement on the concept of what we're about to consider for this corridor. The image you see on the screen is a little drone shot of Ben Wilson going down the street. And this illustration is a concept of what we're thinking would be looking like right in front of the UHV campus. And so we'll go into a little bit of the detail of what we're thinking, what the impacts would be, how things will operate on that corridor. Just to bring you back about a year or so ago, we brought to you several alternative configurations that we are considering, and we all kind of generally concurred that alternative 3A would be the best of the options we have before us. So I'll kind of bring you from north to south we kind of begin on the ends from Business 59 into Red River. Stays about the same. It's a 5-lane road, flush median in the middle. We then transitioned to a three-lane section between there and Airline Road. And then back to the five-lane section it is up to the northern end. And so the area really focuses on the safety and the pedestrian elements of the area right in front of campus and everything that we'll be working with. So we'll walk you a little bit through each of the sections and some of the elements that are particulars about this corridor and how the treatments would be done. But the general configuration that you see on the upper left is a three-lane section. This would be the area that's more in front of the commercial and residential part of that street section. 15-foot wide lane each direction with a 12-foot wide center turn lane. Would allow room for, you could share the lane with a bike, you could pull over far enough for an emergency vehicle to come over. Actually, an emergency vehicle could actually use that center turn lane all the way down here. In the center, right in front of UHV, we've raised that center median area to have more of a landscaped area, a pedestrian refuge area for students to cross back and forth between the two sides of campus. And you might see that actually it actually becomes a little bit wider footprint right there in front of the University of Houston. Instead of a 12-foot wide flush median, we have about a 20-foot wide raised vegetated median. There will be pedestrian crossing treatments right focused in that sector. Beginning at Airline was probably the trickiest intersection to work with of how this overall concept works because there's so much turning movements happening through the intersection. So we'll walk through some of the things. On the north side, coming down from the north, we can only receive one lane coming in, so we have to create a force-off right turn lane from that lane coming to the right. From the east side, which is number 2 on that screen over there, configuration basically stays about the same as it is, but there's a heavy left turn movement happening there, and so we had to plan accordingly for that. Going northbound, which is number 3, we still will have 2 lanes with a left turn. The rightmost lane is mostly used by people turning right, going over to continue on an Airline to the north. And then to the west, we have Airline Road, existing 4 lanes would stay 4 lanes. So that's a bit of how that would transition from its existing 5-lane section into the 3-lane section coming towards the south. Yes.
Okay, currently you can't turn right there on Airline, coming off of Ben Wilson. It says no right turn with the red light. So is that going to stay the same or?
You're talking about
The very top little red circle that you got, semicircle turning to the right, going east.
Number 3.
Number 3,
And number 3, there's the top, I guess, little red line that you got going up there. We can't turn right there because you see
that's
how the street
right
comes
on
down?
red though,
It's
Yeah.
just right on.
because of obstruction. There's a lot of
Yeah,
trees
there's
there.
obstruction because of that fence right there. You can't see the traffic coming. So I'm just asking, is that sign going to stay there that you can't turn right
so
on the red
you're-
light?
Yes, because right now, that lane is all the way up against that edge, and the fence is still going to be where it is. We had investigated other opportunities to maybe bring that part of Airline down to 3-lane, to push that lane up a little bit, which would eliminate some of that blockage of the line of sight. That could be handled in another consideration.
Okay.
But at this point, that's not what the university is asking to be done.
Right, well, I'm just saying because you've got some marks on there.
Right, and that was a consideration, and we modeled it, we showed how it could operate, it would still work okay, but it was not something we wanted to advance at this point.
What is the little red U? That's what Ms. Solis is referring to there at the corner of Airline and Ben Wilson. Is that just designating an entrance there? Is that what you're doing there with the little red?
These little
I
red
see.
areas, that's the edge of the curb area,
Okay.
that's just to annotate that there's driveways there and they're still there.
And I think that's what she was referring to.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So-
Yeah, that's just where driveways are.
Okay.
Want to accentuate the fact that there's existing driveways and they're going to stay there and you can still get in and out of them.
Okay.
They may not
And
stay.
these turn lanes, or that's just painted stripes, or is there actual medians?
That's just striping.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, you could come down Ben Wilson and turn left across there into the driveways into the Knights of Columbus parking lot.
very good, thank you.
In fact, we even minimized the length of that left turn into just enough to store 2 left turn cars to give enough left turn storage area to get into the turn lanes into Knights of Columbus. And that can be refined even further during design. All right, moving on, we kind of bring it to the south of there. This is the 3-lane section with the flush median. I wanted to accentuate, I think there's a question about whether they would maintain access to all these businesses. So it highlights the fact that up here at number 3, this is Knights of Columbus, and still get in and out of those driveways. The office complex over here would still have the same access it has now. Right now, there's 5 lanes with a center turn. Now it'll be 3 lanes with a center turn. So maintains about the same access, but now cars won't have 2 lanes of cars to cross over to get into the. They'll just have 1 lane to cross over to get into the traffic. So technically, it could be a little bit safer condition. Also a little bit shorter for pedestrians to cross across 3 lanes instead of 5 lanes. And we had heard from the Bronson Terrace folks that a lot of folks do cross across right in there to get over the church and other places they want to go to. Coming on down to the area right in front of the university, down to Red River. It's a 3-lane. We're going to raise up those medians. We pull out the footprint a little bit, make the center nice and wide, because we get a lot of pedestrians trying to cross. One of them have an ample refuge area in the middle. Talking with UHG folks, they felt that they would allow that roadway and its sidewalks to encroach into that side of the campus beyond the normal footprint of the street right away, just to allow that to happen. We also have an assortment of bus pullovers and turn lanes. So there's a 15-foot wide channelized section that a car could pull over into, and another vehicle could get on by in case we had concerns about ambulances coming into a section where there's kind of a constrained part between the medians. Ample room for 2 vehicles to kind of get past each other. But there's also an assortment of pullover areas, bus pullovers on each side, turn lanes. So there's really very short segments of parts of the road that are constrained by the medians.
When you say raised medians, are you talking just curb height or are you talking taller?
It's curb height. The edges would be curb height and then be landscaped in the interior of that.
Okay.
And so if there's large vehicles or something need to kind of pull around, they've got room along the edges. If you needed to, if a car was broken down, didn't get quite all the way over the edge, you could still kind of get up around and go around things. So there's lots of flexibility in this. We could design mountable curbs. We could do all sorts of things to accentuate the safety and the mobility in the corridor.
There's 3 crossways for students, but only one of them's gonna have a light, or one of those, what do you call them? The hawk. Those white ones, are they the crosswalks?
Where I have the
The
letter
A?
A
A,
on this signal, this is the first crosswalk right here. And it's just a single crossing. Down here where this A is, there's actually 2 crossings. They would work together. They both have the PED crossing signal for them. Any button on any of those 4 poles would bring up the pedestrian crossing signal. So there's a set of 2. One is kind of a double and one is a single. These 2 kind of work together, and then this one works separately over here. And these would go in first with the current consideration of the student center and other things that are happening right in the middle over here. And these would be later on as the other buildings going up there. And we'd also add pedestrian countdown signal heads at Red River at the crossing there and really accentuate the safety of that pedestrian crossing. We studied this quite extensively and went through the presentation last time, but just to remember where we were, the MPO projected in 2040 that this corridor would grow about 10% in traffic or so. We looked at the growth and it included some growth of UHV, but then U of H had kind of updated its projections of growth. And so we said, well, it's going to be more like 20%. So whatever we did would have to accommodate 20% more traffic up and down the corridor. And that's the study we did. And the conversion from 5-lane to 3-lane accommodates that traffic quite well. Since then, in that earlier study, UHV had considered posting some parking garages right on either edge of Ben Wilson at the edge of their campus. And since then, they've decided they're going to actually have more remote parking and shuttle people in, so there actually won't be quite as much traffic on Belson Wilson as we had projected. But we still want to make sure we could accommodate that. And with that analysis, we have a letter grade A through F on level service. And during the peak hours, we want to make sure we are no more than level service D. And when we do that 20% more traffic and our 3-lane conversion, we're still A's and B's and C's for level service operations on the street. So everything should work just fine and give us more buffer in case growth should exceed our wildest expectations. There was some concern about whether we have enough room for trucks to turn in and out of areas where they're constrained by that raised median area. So we put a truck turning template on the curb areas, kind of laid it out as it would be laid out in the street. Probably one of our biggest constraining vehicles is a bus. A truck with its, the 18-wheeler has a bendy part in the middle, so it gets around the corner is actually better than a bus. So a bus would be our constrained element. So we put a bus turning template on there, and we figured out, it'll take a 25-foot radius to accommodate that bus coming out of the drive from campus. If he's waiting at that stop line in his lane, we can still accommodate him coming around that corner. So most of the time they'd probably swing out and take the whole area. But we want to make sure that if they just happen to stop there waiting for cars to come through, then they could make that turn. So we have that. And that, again, would be further refined during design, but we want to make sure that it wasn't a problem for us to be able to do that. So that works just fine. And then we have an opportunity while we're reconstructing this corridor to do some treatments as part of the corridor to enhance the drainage of the area. Obviously, when we rebuild from a 5-lane where the drainage inlets are out here to a 3-lane, the drainage inlets have to move in. So we've got to rebuild all those drainage inlets on the side. Well, while we're rebuilding all that, we have that opportunity to address whatever it is that's causing that water to build up in the street. And so part of the design would entail a bigger drainage study, in particular, whether it's adding more pipes or whatever under the ground. But we've got a placeholder in our early concept to add some more storage under this pavement. And it may not be storage that's the issue. It may be more the inlets that are the issue, and that'll be studied in more detail when we get to that point. But as part of that, this, just for everybody's information, this is Ben Wilson right here, and this is Red River here. Ben Wilson actually in this section right in front of the UHV campus has 2 big pipes on either side of it that are storing water underground there, and then it all feeds into this existing 5x5 box that's under Red River, or 5x7 box, and then the future improvement would add another box under Red River to help bring all that drainage that's kind of backing up in that area. But that's in a future date. And so in the interim, there might be an opportunity to add a little more, enhance something that's underground down there now, to add a little more storage while, this improvement's waiting to happen, to mitigate the raising of the water up into the street that happens occasionally when we have a big storm event. So we've got that kind of as a placeholder in our conceptual design to be refined during final design for something to happen. But, right now we just got a placeholder for a couple more pipes under there. So the drainage provision right now, you've got the existing 32 and a 42-inch along each side of the street. And so a few things going to happen as part of this project. One thing will be we will actually have less pavement to run water off from. There'll be more grassy area for the water to sink into. So that'll be one of the things. It'll kind of have a nice improving element. And then all the other improvements we make to the existing inlets to make them more up-to-date and current design standards and other things that happen should rectify a lot of things, and then we'll have the opportunity to add a little something in there to facilitate whatever else might happen, yeah.
Will you also be considering the new buildings that are going to be built, both the dorms, the common area, and the other building on the west side? As you're not going to just be looking at the street and draining it?
Right. UHV is doing campus designs on all its new buildings. All its new buildings are incorporating on-site detention ponds and other areas to kind of store the new facility work. But it just holds it there. It'll hold there until the water starts to drain, and then it'll drain out. It's not going to solve the ultimate need for that additional 5x5 box down Red River, but it'll help. It'll help store things temporarily until they can drain out into the rest of the system.
Thank you.
Y'all could put that additional 5x5, I suppose, in Red River Forest if you like. But I'm obviously kidding. Yeah, the rest of the infrastructure is our issue. I know that you cannot solve the drainage issue. It's just what you're doing.
Right.
Does the drainage here runs to Red River drain?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought Cherry and the other fruit streets ran to Lone Tree Park, Lone Tree Retention Pond.
Seems like it would.
And we've got some of that mapping up and down there, and you're right, you'll see some of the lines that are in those fruit tree streets. They go kind of north, but a lot of them come south. A lot of them feed down into Red River, River.
Well, years ago, there was a heavy rain and it flooded Cherry Street and those other streets. And the problem was Lone Tree Retention Pond was full. Had no place to go. And that's why I thought it did, but maybe I'm wrong on it.
Yeah, and that'll be part of the bigger study that we'll do as part of the project. We'll study it, we'll make sure that whatever we would do to add storage or fix inlets or whatever would be part of the solution and not just something that would be down there and wouldn't really help. And so it's really imperative for us to do the study, the bigger study of what should be done to contribute to the issues, and then put that in as part of the project.
And I think too, and when we first looked at this, it's better storage than we've got right now with these adjustments, so.
Right. And it should help, and just how much it'll help, and that's to be studied. All right, and then we'll also have a bit of water and sewer. Everything under there is in pretty good shape, but we'll have some adjustments to manholes, adjustments to valves as part of the new roadway construction. But that's part of the extent of what we'll do. There also will be maybe some placeholders for additional taps for future additions by the university that could be put in now, so you're not tearing up the street at that point when they go in. So all those considerations will be done as part of this project.
Those water lines, are they going to be sufficiently big enough for all the construction you're going to do on the east side?
That's what we'll be looking at also, is there enough capacity in the system to handle the future growth of all the dorms, everything that's going to go in there?
And that's when you were talking about potential retention ponds or detention ponds as well.
For the new development also, there would be that consideration for on-site detention ponds.
When you're talking about retention ponds, are you talking underneath the ground?
The detention ponds, I don't know if you've seen the new building that was put in. Right behind that, on the west side of the building, there's a kind of a lower area right behind that building. It's a surface pond that's just a grassy area. It's depressed and lower, so it stores runoff, and runoff is channelized to that area to build, and then it dissipates and flows out. But the additional element that's in our Ben Wilson project is considering additional underground storage in pipes. And that's just the placeholder for ultimately what we'd figure out to do.
And then it's going to tie into our 5x5s on Red River? Eventually?
Eventually,
I'll have to
eventually
ask.
that would be the ultimate design to be able to do that.
Yeah.
For now, it would just kind of store the over stuff that's spilling over, and it would store that underground.
And that's going to be on our dime?
The 5x5,
I didn't.
The
That's gonna be in our-
5x5,
yeah.
the new box? Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that's us.
The water's there now, and if the road's narrower, there'll be a little bit more area for the water to not be running, but to be absorbed. But the water's there now, so it's our problem now anyway.
Now I'll ask Dr. Morgan to come back up and wrap it up for us.
Thank you. One of the things that we did want to point out was that the growth of UHV will have a major economic impact on the city of Victoria. These are projected figures, the added regional income of about $317 million a year from the growth. That's about 178 million more than we have now with our current enrollment. And then new jobs created, about 3,800 new jobs, which is a 228% increase over current levels. That's not just jobs at UHV, that's jobs in the community, and that's money in the community. Because as these people come in, it's not just tuition and fees they pay. They bring their families and their parents with them. Last weekend, we had 150 students here for orientation. Every student, I think, had 2 parents and 3 siblings and 4 grandparents that came in with them. And they eat and buy gasoline, and some stay overnight. So it's a combined impact of what happens when visitors come to the community because of events at UHV. That was the second one of those 150-person orientations we have. We've got another one scheduled, and those are all new students. So we're excited about the possibility of our enrollment increases.
Dr. Morgan, may I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
That's 6,000 students. Is that 6,000 FTEs in Victoria, or is that UHV total?
Well, no, that's in Victoria.
Okay.
Our projected goal growth are 6,000 students in Victoria, 4,000 students over in the Katy area.
Okay. And where are we now with FTEs?
We're about, well, with FTEs, I'm not sure. We've got about 1,500 students that are attending here at UHV. 6,000 FTEs would be close to 10,000 students.
Okay.
Head count. Many of our students take 12, 15 hours, and FTE is 30 hours a year. So to get to there, you've got about 10,000 students that are floating around in the community.
Okay.
So if 6,000 FTE is our goal, then the head count would be closer to 10,000 students. Okay. As you know, we purchased Town Plaza Mall. We finally got that deal closed, And one of the significant factors of owning Town Plaza Mall are the 800 parking spaces that we acquired with the mall. That's what eliminated the need for the 2 high-rise parking garages on Ben Wilson, and of course cut down significantly on the amount of traffic that will be moving up and down Ben Wilson if you're not coming to 200 or 300 slot parking garages. You don't have that traffic there. You're parking over at Town Plaza Mall and being shuttled in to the campus from there. The wide center medians and the single lane traffic obviously increase the safety in these areas. The 15-foot wide lanes allow for the passage of an emergency vehicle by a car that's on that lane. Or even if there's a stall car, it doesn't block the lane, other cars can get by. And of course, the traffic projections were about 20% growth to accommodate. The MPO projections are about 10%. And so we're actually, I think, well engineered for the kind of growth that we'll see in that area as we move forward. So anyway, we'll be glad to answer any other questions. And of course, as you know, UHV is planning to bear the cost of this project in the purchase of the outside lanes, and then the city will use those resources to complete the construction. So it should be a zero impact on the city in terms of cost.
We like those projects, actually, so appreciate you saying that.
I have some questions on, it's the spreadsheet that shows comparison of existing and proposed street section with increased traffic volumes.
So back to
That one.
that one.
So on some of them right now, we have a C rating for 2015 volumes, and specifically the southbound right turn at Ben Wilson and Airline. Didn't see any major changes on that, and how does it go from a C to an A without really any configuration change?
To the
I'm
left
going to let the
turn.
traffic engineers talk about that.
It's because of the left turn, right?
Correct. Well, there is a configuration change for southbound southbound Ben Wilson at Airline, because you had 2 lanes going through, and there's a through and right on the right. Now you'll have a through lane and a right turn lane. So your right turns, where they were mixed with a through, had a level service C like the through people, but now they have their own lane, so they have basically unimpeded, so they have level service A now because it's a right turn dedicated lane for the right turn vehicles. So that was a change. We wanted to highlight that in here, actually, that the right turn.
But then the
is
through
different.
traffic gets worse.
The through traffic goes from where are we? Let me look it up. Southbound.
So what's the
through
percentage of
B to
people
B,
turning
B to
right
C.
versus going through?
I'd have to look back in the original report to see that.
So are we making
there.
it worse for more people and better for less?
The worst definition, if you're going from like a B to a C,
That's worse. Well, yeah, B to C would be worse.
like we just lost, the definition of going from a B to a C is a matter of a few seconds on the average vehicle going through. And so it really.
Not better, though.
It's not better, but it's not terrible. Right now, you have level service B, which is excellent during a peak hour condition, and you're stepping back a bit to a level service C. And that's under the plus 20% condition. So it is a reasonable accommodation trade-off for what we're trying to accomplish at the intersection.
So, but, I mean, we're getting worse on almost everything, right? Eastbound through and left goes from A to a C.
Eastbound, through and left, Let's check my diagram here. Eastbound through left. Correct, you go from A and C. And again, an A is right now what's happening is you have on the eastbound condition, you have 2 through lanes, but you've got left turns that are impeding that through a bit. And with the timing on the signal, and we can rework the signal timings and make it work a little bit better on each of these approaches. But what happens is, and this is the reason why we considered the 3-lane condition on that west side on Airline Road, is because you could have a left turn bay that the left turns could wait over here and the through traffic could always be on the right and proceed through. But right now, what you have with the 4 lanes is anybody that wants to turn left at Ben Wilson on Airline would impede the people that are trying to go through in that leftmost lane. And so when you have that condition, once we bring it down a bit where we steal a little bit of the green time to rebalance elsewhere, so now your level service A would go down to a B or a C. And it just kind of reallocates the green time to the various approaches. Now, level service C during a peak hour condition is still a very good operation, but it's just not as
good as what we have.
free-flowing, not as free-flowing as what you have, right?
Right, so all I see for all this design, right, we've made no improvements to traffic flow except for a right turn lane.
And
And this is, traffic flow, and I mean, I don't know exactly what your A, B, and C means, except for the stuff here, but in every case, except for that one, it's made it worse.
right, and
So I question, what's the purpose, aside from aesthetics, that we're doing this if we are decreasing capacity on a roadway that we've already paid for and have installed?
the capacity you have on that roadway actually is too much for the volume it carries, and so it is encouraging very high speeds up and down the street. And so this exercise is what is called right-sizing a street, where you bring it down to the number of lanes that it takes to process the traffic in an orderly manner at a reasonable speed up and down the street. And it also gives the pedestrians space to negotiate across the street and up and down the street. So it's a balancing of the needs of all the other things that are in this corridor. Traffic operations are something we all need to work well, and it needs to work well during the peak hour. And that's why we set that threshold of level service D. We don't want to have our peak hour operations work less than level service D, because people start feeling the pain of queues are too long and my delays are too long. When you're in the ABC range, you can hardly tell the difference by another second of waiting at the signal to get on through. And so it's a trade-off now between the accommodating of mobility for cars and accommodating mobility for pedestrians and other things that need to happen up and down the corridor. So the objective for the Ben Wilson corridor was not to move traffic fast and as little delay as possible. The objective was to right-size it, have good operations, and accommodate all the other things we're trying to do in this corridor. So it's more of a right-sizing and a balancing of mobility needs for all than truly just focusing on cars and making them go fast.
I understand that approach also, but I also understand what the taxpayers have paid for in that roadway. And in every condition, except for that one, it's slowing things down. And the expectation is they have a product that they've paid for. And free-flowing traffic and reasonably free-flowing traffic occurs on that road right now, and we're choking it down. By this report's own admission, it's slowing it down.
We are bringing those level services back down into the mid-range. Right now, in the free flow of condition, the seconds of delay is 0 to 5. That means I have almost no delay at all going through the corridor, through the intersection. I arrive and I'm always moving and I have no delay. You bring down the B, I might have to stop at a light, but probably not, and probably no queues. But you get down to C, you're having to interact with traffic more. You've got more traffic you're traveling behind, and you probably will have to stop at the traffic signals. So it starts to bring it down to what most people expect to do during a peak hour operation. Most people expect to be mixed in with all the other cars and to generally have to negotiate through the intersections. And so it is in the range of reasonable expectations for a level of service at the intersections.
I would say maybe reasonable expectation in another city, in another area of this town maybe. But that expectation, I don't believe is there on that road.
Well, it wasn't that long ago that we, year or so, that we reduced the speed limit on Ben Jordan from 40 to 35.
Some sections it's still 40.
Is that correct?
I don't know, that I would have to.
Maybe a year or two?
From Sam Houston
At the
to Airline.
behest of the residents of the area.
From Sam Houston to Airline, the
And so
concrete
I'm-
section's 40, and
I'm a
then
little confused
from there
about
it's
I
35.
don't have committed all the speed limits. I just try to abide by them. But I don't know if is Ken out there? Okay, we can get that information back to you.
That's where I would like to see this design match what we have for free flow still, or for A or B. When we start dropping into C, I think the only issue I have is that we're choking the roadway down. And we're not allowing for the same capacity of cars. What if the model of 20% is wrong? What if we start falling into Ds? I mean, how far does that volume have to go before we fall into a D?
We ran that up to about 50% more cars, and you got into that D range of operations. And so even with this 20% more, we have ample room to absorb more traffic than we're expecting.
So you can go from a A to a C with 20% extra volume, but you add 30% more on top of that, and you can go just one letter? I don't understand the grading system then.
Councilman
and we-
Bucknight,
Yes.
part of what we're doing here is bringing a 2-lane in each direction road down to 1 lane in each direction.
I understand that.
So part of the slowdown, in my looking at it, at Ben Wilson and Airline, is the traffic that is coming from 2 lanes down to 1. And I think that may be part of what's doing this. I'm not the engineer, but I just want to throw in here that what we started looking at is slowing traffic down and safety and crossing in that section between Red River and Airline. We talked about the fact that this intersection was going to be impacted. And I think that the design they've done and the numbers they give us will bring the traffic through that intersection. You're going to have a bottleneck when you go from 2 lanes down to 1. And you're going to have that wherever that going from 2 to 1 is.
Yep, that makes my point exactly. We're gonna have a bottleneck.
Okay?
And I love the aesthetics of it, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful, it looks great, but I still worry about the traffic flow through that area and getting people through the campus that is a public street and getting them to where they need to go because they're not going to campus.
It's accommodating about 15,000 cars a day in what we're projecting, which is more than we have now. So it'll accommodate more traffic and can probably go up to about 20,000 cars a day in that 3-lane section of roadway. And so, again, we're balancing the need of safety for the pedestrian crossings. So we want to slow that traffic down. When we slow traffic down, people are going to have a few more seconds to get through the area. And that's just going to be the natural impact of bringing in this environment we're creating for the street. And we can't create it by leaving the 5-lane roadway in there.
So this, council, I guess it's been 15 months or so, Charmel, since we
Probably close
first
to.
saw this? And of course, this council gave consensus for this design initially, right? I think 6 out of the 7 of us, I don't know if Ricky was here. I don't think it was a vote, it was a consensus, and UHV needs that, again, to go forward, that's ready, you know, unfortunately, it's taken this long, I'm looking at Dr. Morgan, we've all lamented that process, but unfortunately, here we are. And of course, we asked for more details. It's common sense that, yeah, we're choking it down, yes, we're slowing it down by design, it's a change of use. It's just a different set of circumstances. When VISD builds an elementary school, the circumstances change for traffic around that school. Of course, those are elementary kids. These are adults, and I fully recognize that. This is out of the box for us. It's different. It is beautiful, I know that. We need to develop consensus again so that they can go forward. Now, as far as who's doing the engineering, I know you guys are paying for it, but we'll be involved in some part of it. You need to go forward with the sale of we're gonna sell the right-of-way on the sides to you. And we need to make sure tonight we have a consensus on that? Is that what we're
That
looking
would be
for?
nice, that's what we'd like to have, so.
So what's the proposal? What are we selling? 2 lanes?
Number of feet.
I don't know the
2 lanes
exact
of
fee.
improved roadway?
Yeah.
That will require a vote ultimately by
Yeah,
us.
the goal would be, if there's consensus to move forward, we would start contract negotiations to line out all those details, the purchase price and how it's going to be handled going forward, and then come back to council with a contract.
So I'm thinking this is no different than, we get bids in to look at a roadway. I can know what a roadway costs per mile, and we got a lane that we're gonna have to sell.
We've done the same
Cost per
for
mile.
Citizens Medical Center and Detroit Hospital.
Well,
But yeah, that's how it was done.
And we've talked previously about an approximate price, and I hate to throw a dollar amount out there. Wayne, was it around 6 million? Yes. Yeah, so for them to purchase that property.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to look at the
We're still
breakdown.
gonna have
So-
to be
Price per
responsible
road.
for the construction, right?
Sorry?
We're still gonna be responsible for the construction? I thought that was the deal last time that we spoke, that they're selling.
Well, they're gonna, once they purchase that property, they're gonna be responsible for what's done on their property. Stuff that needs to be done and what we own, we will do that. And that's the money that he's paying us is what we will use to do any improvements on our property. And then we'll coordinate what needs to be done with the sewer and the water systems, just like we do with any other development.
What about the medians? Who takes care of those?
Well, that's something we'll have to talk about. I mean, I'm assuming UHV is gonna take care of those medians.
I would think that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I would sure hope for. You have a grounds maintenance crews as it is, or VC, or however y'all contract it out, but that's a good question.
Wayne's gonna, okay, Wayne's
Wayne,
taking care of it.
Wayne's gonna do the mowing himself, okay. Well, so what's gonna happen is, if we can just, let them go forward and begin negotiations, we'll have an opportunity to vote on the sale of that at some point. Obviously, I hate to think that we would send you guys off to do all this work, all this legal work and surveying and blah, blah, and stuff that comes up, sorry, to the lawyer here, and come back and that not work. We need to have some understanding and agreement on this. There is no vote tonight.
No, but I'm like you, it'd be nice if we have a consensus. Yes, the majority of council still wishes for us to sell the property to UHV and we move forward with this 3-lane design going forward. Or if there's not enough to move forward, a consensus to move
And
forward.
you're
then
asking
we
for
need to
that
know.
tonight?
I'd
Who's-
like to know the consensus, yeah.
Who has the major objections? Dr.
We just
Young?
got this study, though. I mean, we
What's-
just got this summary. I
It's-
mean, I have 100 more questions.
Okay,
We're gonna do it tonight?
Oh,
We're gonna
sure.
vote tonight?
No vote?
no, but that's why Freeze and Nichols are here to answer any of the questions, and we've been talking about this for much longer than you've been on council. But, I mean, if y'all want us to bring it back on August 1, we can bring it back on August 1. But it's a lot of work to start getting lawyers involved in negotiating a contract if the majority of council's not going to support the concept.
Well, we need to bring it back because there's still a lot of
It'd be better on
questions.
the second meeting in August for me personally, but
Yeah.
whatever council wants.
If you do have
I'm
questions
fine.
tonight that you can ask Freeze and Nichols, that would be great while they're here, too.
I'll ask just a few to one of the
Sure.
one of the UHV. Why all the way to Airline and not just to Bronson Terrace from Red River? Why are we doing all of it?
We anticipate perhaps expanding that far up the street in the future.
I would also, I just want, just throw this out, because we're all here, this will become a pedestrian corridor to the Town Plaza Mall site. You stop and think about it, those kids are gonna wanna go that way, they're gonna go down to Airline, and there will be foot traffic and bicycle traffic, et cetera. So your efforts like that, I think it's an 8-foot sidewalk all the way to Airline is part of that entire frame of thought, so.
Yeah.
I'm
That
sorry.
also clears up the exit out of Bronson Terrace onto Ben Wilson with an 8-foot sidewalk. Right now, you almost literally have your front bumper into the traffic flow before you can see around the fences. An 8-foot sidewalk opens that up.
And if we
Also,
could,
you're talking about an increase to 6,000 students from 1,500. That's an increase in water flow and sewage and traffic. So is the city of Victoria gonna be responsible for the increase in water usage? And we're gonna have to replace all the lines?
I don't think so. I
All-
mean, they'll,
on
when they
our
build,
dollar?
when they build their new buildings, you know, they'll tap into our water lines. I don't, I mean, I, don't- you know, I don't see any, I mean, Ken, you wanna help me out here on water lines?
12-inch water line, and within the system, and the sewer line is 36 inches, well sufficient enough to supply the school with the water.
So I'm gonna repeat that since you're not at a mic. His answer was, yes, it's sufficient enough to handle any growth. I know Mr. De La Garza could hear you, I just don't know if everybody else could.
thank you.
Yeah, and I kind of have to disagree as that being a pedestrian corridor. I don't see people walking that 1.5 miles between campuses. Maybe riding a bike, maybe. But I was at A&M and you get on the bus, go across
Yeah.
Olson, and you're not going to walk that 1.5 miles. You're not going to have the time to walk that 1.5 miles.
But I think there will be some walking up and down because there are a couple of restaurants a little bit further up.
It's 1.5 miles almost from,
No. Just on Ben Wilson I'm talking about, where they're putting the wide sidewalks.
yeah, but not all the way to the mall location.
Okay, so council, how about we, Mr. De La Garza, you probably don't have the full plan we got all those months ago with all the options. Maybe he'd get you a copy. He was not.
No, but I thought I provided that to you.
Do you,
The freeze and
The
Three-ring
full, the
binder?
full study that was done.
Nichols, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
okay, because, and you're right, Mr. Garza wasn't on council, but, and these plans are the same plans that we've gone over numerous times.
let's, I'm sorry,
I
Ms. Scott.
just, you know, I don't think it's a secret that I support this. I support what the university is trying to do, and we're approaching this as though it's a development that we somehow can stop. And the university plans to grow. I believe it's going to grow. And I think that we can either make it be a more attractive asset for our community, or we can sit up here and talk about the students crossing Ben Wilson like we talk about people jaywalking across Navarro or across Red River. We're trying to address the situation where people are trying to cross the street. And I think that it will be different, absolutely, but different doesn't have to mean bad. I think when you come down from 5 lanes to 2 lanes with a center lane, you're going to have some obstruction at some point. Once you get through that intersection, traffic's going to continue to flow. And I think that it's something that we really should be supporting, because I think it's on a bigger scale, it's good for the community. And, you know, I want to make sure that things like the water lines are sufficient or are going to be handled. But to me, it's no different than a new subdivision coming in or than a new commercial establishment of some sort coming in. I believe that the staff's capable of looking at the issues that we're raising. And they haven't been telling us there's a problem with those things.
No, but I also want to make sure in the contract details, if we move forward with this, that we get compensated for the loss in roadway, and that money goes back into the general fund. Any improvements that are needed because of this development needs to be borne by UHV, not by the $6 million or whatever that dollar figure is that has to come to us, because it would not have to be spent but for this change in the roadway. I don't think it's right to use that money for it. That is just a payment for property that the city and the taxpayers own.
Well, as I
Well,
understand.
we sure
it's
did a lot
revenue-
of work for VISD when they built the new schools.
Sir?
Quite a few $1 million worth of improvements for Rudolph Torres and many of the other schools when they were built a few years back. Quite a few $1 million.
That's very true. Some of it even occurred years later. But as I understand, Dr. Morgan mentioned this was revenue neutral at the beginning of his presentation. I have no reason to suspect otherwise. I understand your point.
Mrs. Garrett just said that some of that 6 million would be used for improvements in this area that were needed,
Where we would be doing improvements, yes.
but that's not revenue neutral.
Well, it's just not costing us anything. I mean, it's, what we get from UHV, we'll turn around and use on doing improvements. I heard what you said, though. You want it to go in the general fund. I mean, so,
Yeah. And I'm not sure what those improvements are you're
What-
referring to.
yeah, no, we've got a list.
I mean, if it was the 5x5 box culvert and it paid for that, hey,
It's not,
I know.
Yeah, the one in Red River, the new one?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
So my sense is that there's not a majority that wish to move forward with a project.
do y'all want to, do you need to come back at the next
Can we
meeting?
get
or do
some
you wanna
head
go down-
nods of who wants to move forward?
I'm sorry?
Can we get some head nods of who wants to move forward?
Well,
Not a formal vote, it's just to take it forward and see where it leads to.
sure, and then I get a sense that there's probably not a majority, but I also get a sense that there's a majority that want to bring it back on the second meeting in August. I heard you ask for the second meeting
I
in
would
August and not
request that if I
the
if I
first
could.
meeting. So,
If the contract is ready.
so I guess what we would need, though, is, so what do we need to prepare for that meeting in August? I'm hearing there's additional questions. I heard what Mr. Balknight said about what's the expectations of the money, what would we have to do? So what do you need from UHV when they come back? I understand what you want from us, so,
I would like at least a week to dig through this
okay,
instead of the couple hours like Ricky said, that
sure.
some more time to go through it. As you can probably tell, I'm not fully on board with bottlenecking everything.
Sure.
And then I'll have also questions for contractually, questions that I know aren't gonna be answered on the 18th or whatever it is. But at least some time to digest what's in this executive summary and dig down and get some details.
Sure, and what may be helpful is, though, things that contractually that you want to make sure that we consider in the contract, if we could have that information.
I'll get that to you as well.
Okay, that
but-
would be very helpful.
Would it be preferable that we go to a later date than
No.
August, if you need more time?
What is that date exactly? Anybody have your calendar?
15th, August the 15th.
How do you guys feel? I get a sense the three of you feel the same way. I'm getting yeses.
I mean, I think a week and a half to get your questions, give them time to get some answers back, and then we can go over them.
And I would like to verify what I said about Ben Jordan, because those are two streets that bracket the university, Ben Jordan, Ben Wilson.
35
But
in
if we
front of Victoria.
reduce the speed
College.
limit, as I said, that might have been from 45 to 40 or 35 to whatever, but it was reduced, and it's less than 2-3 years. And it was done at the behest of the residents. And so I'm trying to understand why the residents on one side want it slowed down, and the residents on the other side don't.
People
Same
didn't,
same neighborhood.
people didn't agree. Imagine that.
It's 35 on both sides.
You guys want to, August 15th? Okay, but we don't need to hold this up after that
No.
day. Let's get this, we don't want you guys to wait. Now it's our fault, I guess, but we'll give you something that night, and you guys will be able to come back?
I have one question that I'd like to ask tonight.
Absolutely.
On this chart, the comparison of existing and proposed street sections of the increase of the traffic volume, was the three student intersections considered for the proposed configurations? Because that's going to slow down traffic too. because you're not going to have students always on just one pathway. If you have 3 crosswalks, the car's going to have to stop 3 times if it's going to be 3 different intersections. Was that taken into account in this proposal, in this configurations? Because you talked only about signal lights, so,
Correct. What we highlighted in that table was the full-time traffic signals that are there all the time working. The hawk signals, the pedestrian activated signals, can be programmed to only allow it to be stop traffic when the other traffic on Ben Wilson nearby is stopped. So we can coordinate them as we coordinate any other signal for progression of the cars. So we want to get a progression of cars through Ben Wilson. We can not allow the pedestrian crossings to stop the cars. And so we can coordinate those efforts.
okay.
Okay, we have our direction. We're going to see this again.
I'm sure there are others that can make the presentation. I will not be here on the 15th. I'll be
Okay,
out of town.
okay. We appreciate your time and coming tonight and sharing all this again, and we'll get moving on it soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Citizens' communication is still open. I want to apologize to everyone else in the room. I probably should have taken a poll to see who else wanted to speak. I think there are others here. And then typically, when someone asks to be on the agenda, like UHV did, we place them there, they go first, and they do have a much more time. General comments, we'll put a clock up on the screen, and we ask you out of respect for everyone to try to limit your comments on any topic whatsoever to 5 minutes. So again, I apologize, I should have checked first, but here we are. So anyone who'd like to come forward, now would be the time. Just come on up and then limit your comments to at least 5 minutes.
Hi, my name's Linda Henry, and I live on the corner of Versailles and Guy Grant. I was sent a courtesy notice from the City of Victoria Development Services Department under the subject of mowing of right-of-ways. I need to know my property measures 3,400 square feet. And with 2,498 of those square feet includes my house, open porch, carport, concrete paving, and that leaves 902 square feet for an actual lawn. Okay, right off my property, right butted up against my property would be the city property. That city property measures 47 feet by 107 feet, and it's all lawn that needs to be mowed. Now, the city's telling me that I'm responsible to mow that. Now, already, myself and my neighbor and everybody else on this block, we've already been given 15 feet as a courtesy, I call it a courtesy, to the city that we mow above and beyond our property. So now, instead of 15 feet, the city wants us to do an extra 30, so which would be 45, well, 32, 47 by 107. That's unreasonable. It's unsafe. Guy Grant does not have a curb. It does not have a sidewalk. It has a lot of traffic. I'm 60 years old. I have a push mower. I live in a townhome simply because, guess what? There's not supposed to be a lot of lawn maintenance living in a townhome. But then the city of Victoria actually threatens that if I don't mow that, they will have it mowed, they will bill me, and if I don't pay that, they will put a lien on my property. I gotta ask you people how that can be. That is extremely unreasonable, and I'm not gonna do it. I mean, you can put a lien on my property if that's the rate you wanna go, but I'm afraid it's the most unreasonable thing I've ever heard of. If the city really thinks that I should mow their property, maybe should they give me training and equipment and one of those fluorescent vests that lets people know I'm out there on the roadway? This just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Am I able to use this property for my own use because I have to take care of it? Can I park my car there? Can I put a travel trailer there? Can I live on it? I don't think so. Not likely. No more than I could ask my neighbor whose property is butted up against mine, or not even ask, but demand that he mow my property because it's right next to his. I just don't understand the thinking on this. And I would appreciate for this council, the city, to give this some thought, because there's definitely something wrong here. But that's all I've got right now.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. One quick thing, do we have Ms. Henry's address? And y'all do, obviously.
I can leave you with.
Well, that's okay. We, since it's not really on the agenda, we can't deliberate as a council, but what I'd like to do is, if staff could, maybe at our next meeting, we could go over a review of that policy.
Yeah, the
and look at it
department
and see
actually has my phone number. They called me yesterday and asked me if I
Okay.
was gonna be mowing their property, and I said, no.
Okay. Well, we'll put it on I suppose, the next agenda, what day is that?
Just one.
August 1st, and then we can discuss it here amongst ourselves and see.
Well, I will say that
So-
there is quite a bit of concern in the city of Victoria, through social media. That's the best way to go around it. But I'm not the only one that these letters have been going out to. And this has happened before, and it got quashed, well, whenever the property owner sent the city a bill. So, the city said, we won't pay, we didn't contract. Same goes for me. I didn't contract, I won't mow.
Okay, we'll put it on the August 1st agenda. Thank you. Citizens' communication still open.
I have some items for you to consider. Concern the reopening of Riverside Golf Course. I think that one of the things that was a problem was that the amount of play that occurred at Riverside had decreased because of the condition of the course. And plus, there was a significant increase in membership fees over 1 year, which a lot of people dropped their membership out of protest, I believe. So there are some things to think about. Green fees should be reasonable. Usually, membership allows unlimited play. However, sometimes municipal courses charge a surcharge or a pay-per-play fee, which helps keep the membership fees low. Surcharges therefore need to be minimal, no more than $5 per play. I've given some examples here from other municipal golf courses. The other thing is that what I'd like you to consider is that residents of Victoria that pay taxes, city taxes, which go to help fund the Parks Department, should probably get a decrease in their, or break on their membership fees or their green fees. It's something to consider, as opposed to people that are coming from out of the city, out of the county, et cetera. Just food for thought. I know the city manager is wanting to get a contract with a management company before the first of the year. Is that correct? Some concerns that I have about management companies is that Colony Creek had a management company running there prior to the recent, or fairly recent purchase by local businessmen. And what happened was that the management company, in order to increase their profits, was neglecting maintenance. And their membership dropped from well over 400 to slightly over 100 during that time period. They were facing bankruptcy, which may sound familiar. And so these local businessmen purchased Colony Creek, and their membership has increased significantly to where they're now a member-only course. So the only course that we have to play in Victoria is, if you're not a member of a country club, is Riverside Park. Other thing I'd like to mention is that there needs to be some sort of a evaluation of the management company by the people that play the course. One of the things that I would recommend is that 1 week out of each month, there be evaluation sheets put out for when people come and play. They can evaluate conditions of the greens, conditions of the fairway, conditions of the tee boxes, the conditions of the equipment, the facilities in the clubhouse, et cetera, like that, and then have those dropped into a drop box that is locked so that the management personnel can't go through there and discard the negative comments. It's just something to think about. That way, the Parks Department is not saddled with going out there and evaluating the course to see if this company is living up to their portion of the contract. Just some food for thought. And like I have here is some examples of municipal courses and what they charge as far as membership fees, or what I could find out, at least on the internet. And their green fees, so that you can start thinking about how much your green fees need to be, what membership fees need to be, in order to increase play, which will increase revenue. So, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
I did say, we need name and address for the record. I'm sorry.
Oh, Thomas Timmerman,
Okay,
113 Tradewin.
okay.
Victoria.
I thought I recognized you, Mr. Timmerman. Thank you for your coming up here and sharing your comments. We appreciate it. Citizens communication is still open. And name and address for the record.
Good evening, council. My name is Stephen Baca, and I am Linda's back neighbor at 101 Chantilly Street. And I have a little visual here just so y'all can see what we're dealing with here. So a year ago, back in February last year, 2016, I purchased a property, and it's a townhome. Same thing. I wanted low maintenance, not a big yard. And the previous owner said that piece of the property was maintained by the city, which was great. And that was during a time there was a lot of construction. They were redoing the roads in Castle Hills. And so long story short, there was a backhoe that was parked there, and you can see the ruts of the backhoe left. And I would mow it all the way up to, on my side of the property, on 101 Chantilly, to where the ruts started. It was about 15, 20 feet out. Well, and I was doing above and beyond, I guess. I didn't have to do any of that. But anyway, the city was taking care of it, from what I understand, and they sent a letter later, a year later, saying that they will no longer take care of it, which I have a courtesy letter. And basically, it's just, we're no longer taking care of it. I called up there, and the response was, if you're not going to mow it, we're going to fine you, put a lien, etc. You can't sell your property. It's very unfortunate. My yard in that picture, our yard in that picture is roughly less than 1,000 square foot. And, me and Linda have talked about it. We are more than happy to meet the city halfway. We don't want to do the whole property, but we can do half of that. And, Linda's been a neighbor of mine for a while, previously in North Crest, and we just so happen to end up in that same area. What are the odds? So I don't want to see Linda get hit by a car, and I don't want to get hit by a car. If something can be done, great. We'd appreciate it. As the mission statement stands for City of Victoria, it says, the mission of the City of Victoria is to meet or exceed citizens' expectations in the provision of municipal services. All we're asking is just to meet it. I don't expect, but if y'all can meet me halfway on some of this, that'd be great. More of a safety issue. Everybody wants to, bleed the safety issue, but that's true. People are texting and driving up and down that street. There's no curb. There's nothing there. Somebody can just veer off and clip us on the, back of the leg, and next thing you know, I'm in the hospital, stuck with a big medical bill, and I have to pay for it because I'm sure the city isn't. So hopefully, if y'all sell those roads to U of H, that $6 million can be used to up the city's budget, because that's their excuse that they're giving us. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Baca. We will be looking at it, so we appreciate you coming and sharing your thoughts. And the picture is helpful too, thank you. Citizen communication is still open. If anyone else would like to come forward, now's the time. Okay. Seeing no one get up, we're going to move out of citizens communication. And we do have one ordinance, which does have a public hearing, so we'll read that first.
C1 is an ordinance amending the 2016-2017 City of Victoria General Fund budget to provide funding in the amount of $442,000 for the operation of Riverside Golf Course, providing for savings and providing for an effective date.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing, and what that is, if anyone who wants to speak just on this issue, they can now. So, just on this particular budget amendment. Okay, seeing no one get up, we'll close that public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion from council.
Move we adopt?
Second.
A motion and second, are there any discussion or questions?
Go ahead. I have a comment. I know Gilbert does, but go ahead, Mr. Botnick.
So I'm curious why we are amending the 2016-2017 budget for expenses from October through December.
Well, we're setting it up as an enterprise fund, so
That
what
was
we
the next
don't,
question.
I'm sorry.
That's my
So
next
what we
question.
don't spend right now, it'll carry over as, working capital for next year. So you don't have to, we don't have,
Next year's budget.
well,
Can I interject something?
Kinda is, I guess.
that is.
I have several ways to present this to you. I can show you the 17-year and come back later in August and show you the 18-year. But I say, we've been talking about this operation all the way, we want to go out to December. So I thought, I want to show council what we think in the next 5-6 months, what the cost is, and how we allocate it over the years. That's the only reason. The only thing you're doing tonight is approving the $442,000. I will have to come back in August and show you the 2018 budget. 1. 2, as you recall, as you see the format in front of you, it doesn't have any revenues per se. I'm working on that right now with Foresight. We're coming out with the structure itself. So by the time you get the budget for the 18, the 17 column will be revised and you have the 18 budget along with it. Point 3, I'm trying to read people's mind here. You might see a balance left over. So what's going to happen to that balance? Well, there's several factors you have to consider. What type of contract we're going to enter. Right now, currently, we're going through an RFP. That RFP should be out sometime in September. We get it back, we evaluate it. We open for all type of proposals right now. It can be anywhere from actual leasing the golf course, do a management fee, or do a combination revenue sharing concept. So we're still working on that part. But the bottom line, if there's funds left over, there's options to do with that, what we can do with that. Keep in mind, you still have infrastructure out there that need to be replaced. You have an irrigation system right now that's collapsing technically that needs to be replaced within a year. So that's part of the dilemma too. Well, if we got some left over, it's management decision, in my opinion, that we need to put money aside for CIP. But keep in mind too, that one of the rate structures too we plan to have in there's $1, something like a fee, in addition to the regular, to accumulate for that CIP, to do some replacements down the road. Hopefully it accumulates enough so we're replacing and doing some equipment replacement out there too as well. So all those concepts are moving parts right now. But the purpose of this budget, as I'm showing you, Council, I think 442 might be a target right now. And here I think how it's going to lay out. But what you approved right now is a 2017 year. The .4 item, remember a few months ago, actually a couple of weeks ago, you already approved 2 contracts. You did a equipment lease, remember that? And you did a professional service contract. Right now, those contracts are sitting in general fund in Parks Department. If this budget goes through, I'm moving the entire amount, over into the enterprise fund. The last point is that we want to have an enterprise fund. Hopefully, we start accumulate the revenues like any other enterprise fund. Hopefully, it stands on its own. But the logic what city administration is moving towards, it's having a self-sustained operation with minimum impact. And the last thing is for thought. Let's say you don't have the golf. You're going to still have to have a dilemma to maintain 225 acres. We have to get some new equipment. We have to do some more staff additions. So there's going to be a cost either direction. But I think from the administration side of the point, I think my point is that I think the better option right now is going towards the golf side. I hope I try to answer all these questions. Maybe I'm reading people's mind.
I was happy to hear that you said you wanted to move it to an enterprise fund, because I think that's absolutely the right way to go with this, because if it can't make a go of it, I don't think it should be as subsidized.
Well, it's gonna, I'm confident eventually, it's not gonna happen overnight. You can pay for your operating cost. The capital cost out there, we're gonna have to look at how we're gonna pay for that. It's gonna be very difficult to bring in enough revenue from play and, food and beverages to offset all the capital costs.
During the time we're running it. Yeah.
No.
Well, no,
Yeah,
it's
I mean-
Period. I mean, it's
Well,
just, it's
yes,
gonna be
no, I
difficult. And that's
understand.
part of our RFP we'll ask anybody proposing on it to look at capital needs and how they would propose funding for
Right.
that, so.
We're going to have to deal with some upfront capital need replacement right now. We've got to come up with some portion of how we're going to structure those finances for that. But hopefully, the idea is on the long term, once we implement a structure of the fee, that we start accumulating something for I call it, for the CIP fund park, whatever, that will hopefully accumulate over the years, and we can start using that as the replacement. For right now, there's zero. We need to upfront something to do some replacement. There's going to be some costs, straight out. I can't say the other way.
Council, any?
And I'm just curious on how long we let this go. It either goes well or it's not going well before we make a determination. And we probably can't answer the question right now if that's the best use for it and the best use of funding. Is it better just to have a driving range and a really nice natural putting course out there as an amenity in the park, as opposed to a full 18-hole golf course that we can't maintain without huge subsidies from taxpayers?
Well, I haven't had the consensus this council thought that we would do anything else but reopen that course.
No, I want to reopen it. I'm just saying, if we're going to set it up as an enterprise fund, I don't want to get where we're having to interject money all the time. Oh, sprinklers need to be replaced. We need cart paths. We need.
Well,
We
there's-
won't need cart paths for a while. They're in good shape.
There's a,
But you know what?
I understand what you're saying.
I've been
Sure.
around golf courses enough to know it is capital intensive.
Oh,
It is very
absolutely.
labor intensive. And it is a tough business to be in.
And I think a lot of that is we will see that when we do our RFP. We've got a lot of interest in that course from management companies. It's had a good reputation.
Yes.
I continue to have a lot of interest from local citizens that are excited about us bringing it back up to the standard that it was. But there's no doubt, we've got some work we've got a lot of work to do in the clubhouse before we open it back up. Kobe and them are working on the greens right now. We're putting a lot of time and money into, taking care of the greens. So we're just gonna have to see what those proposals come back and look at. But I'm just,
Right.
if that irrigation system goes out tomorrow, we're gonna have to make a decision on putting some money into the irrigation system. So you can't have a golf course without an irrigation system. So, but I think we're doing our due diligence on the, budget and the numbers, and they're fluid at this point. We've got a meeting again tomorrow, looking at, what our rate structures need to look like. So we'll know, estimate what that revenue would start coming in and the play. And, I appreciate the, information on the rates. That's one of the things that we've heard quite a bit. They need to stay low, but at the same time, we need to have a rate that will cover our operating cost.
and any anticipated capital needs. This didn't happen overnight. I mean, the problem's over there, and we're not gonna fix it overnight.
Right.
And I trust, as you said, Gilbert, and the city manager has also reinforced that that rate structure will reflect the best estimate of needs. So there's no question. And, you know, everybody here is right. I agree with everything you said, but we have to continue forward to find out answers to those. And time will tell.
Believe me, Mr. Bognight, we had several meetings, city manager and Kobe, going around, saying, which is our best solution, which angle we need to do. And a lot of the questions, like Mr. Romero mentioned, until we get those RP back, analyze them. And we're being very crucial on those RP. We're asking for get financial data, even to a point, hopefully a projection over the next 5 years, where you're looking at. So, you know, we have a feel. And so it's going to be an ongoing moving target, but hopefully by the time December comes around, we have a good decision. Believe me, we have a lot of things counting on this, so.
Yeah.
I agree that I don't think any of us wanted to close it. But I agree with Councilman Bachnight that if it was able to sustain itself, we wouldn't be running it.
I'm not going to agree with that.
Okay.
I don't mean, I'm going to respectfully disagree with that because it depends on how it's managed.
Thank you.
And, you
Management's
know,
everything.
not to disparage, it was a nonprofit group with volunteers trying to manage a very large, expensive golf course. And, you know, when you've got people that want fees a certain ways and, you know, want things done a certain way, it's just, they've had a rough go for several years. So I'm not saying that, you know.
Add another point to that. Go
Did
ahead,
you-
sorry.
I just wanted to point out one final thing. Whether there's a golf course there, or putting green, or it's just vacant field, we still have outgoing money to maintain it. And at the moment, we don't. If we can get revenues to offset that maintenance, we would be ahead. And hopefully, the business model, properly managed, and management is everything, would be sustainable. If it's not, I gotta agree with you. I don't want, if your horse dies, perhaps we should dismount.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I was going to say, just said, you know, on Ms. Garrett's point, which I agree with her, is that I took time for sure, went out and looked at other cities from off the website and inquired and all that. And there are a lot of cities out there who took the decision that they want to minimize their costs too as well. I can name you several cities, but I don't think they're going to find a city that's zero cost to it. I just want to make sure Ms. Garrett is also correct there. Very influential cities too, in good areas too, that they had to pay, they're happy to pay $8 value a year just for them to take care of the headaches and stuff like that. So it all depends what we get back on these RP, and we can start sitting down and look at them. Last point, I want to make sure, and for the public purposes, that I was here in June last month giving you a presentation to the general fund about where we're looking at for the year end and what we're looking at for 2018. I still have the handout. I'd be happy to send it out to y'all too, because it's 80 pages. But I mentioned in that presentation, the numbers are still affluent numbers, still being adjusted and everything else. And if you go to the last slide of that presentation, it had close to $400,000 of still available excess fund balance over the 25% policy, first of all. And since then, my mind was thinking about, you know, I was looking at these numbers like, I might have to start looking at these one-time expenses that I presented to y'all, and maybe something has to take the axe to do this, or what has priority. But fortunately, I went back since that time, since June to the last couple of weeks ago, looking at all my revenues, taking, you know, if I get $100, I can get $50, looking at my expenses, looking at all the contracts. So this is where I'm able to add some more money to that year-end projected in fund balance, how we can do this and still be comfortable in our policies while have a reserve. So if anybody wondering how this thing came about.
So does that bring our reserve fund balance just to the 25%?
We're still above the 25% with this.
But that's where we're at. We don't have anything extra.
No, I'm not going to say because I'm still fine-tuned. You're going to have a little bit more than that.
Okay.
'Cause you got to remember, I'm very conservative.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, sometimes it's a blessing.
So this number, though, takes us through the end of the year, which is 3 months of next year's budget. but seeing how are you gonna figure in for next year's budget and roll this in because it's gonna turn into some type of reoccurring expense, or?
No, what I'm gonna do is like in August, for example, you're gonna see the same page. But I'm gonna have in 2017, I'm gonna have some revenues. I'm gonna give you some more details than you asked, so I can work it out through my mind. That's how. So in 18, I'm gonna show you the other revenue for October through December. And once I get the budget from Foresight too, because they're gonna be looking at the budget too and what I need to do, I might have to fine tune some of these numbers. So, and that's what I'm gonna present to you in August for the 18 budget. And everything will be fleshed out to what's gonna be end of the year at 9/30, the balance left over.
Right, but since for next year's budget, this will be an enterprise fund.
It is, absolutely. Well, it's gonna be
Okay.
an enterprise fund once you finalize this budget ordinance after the second and third reading. Once that's done, it becomes an enterprise fund in 2017.
But for reoccurring costs in
But
28,
eventually, it will catch up. Yes, I'm upfronting it right now.
but we hope too that if we contract with a management
Correct.
company, a lot of these reoccurring costs shift over to the management company.
Right. So don't be surprised, I'm come back in 2018, I got to revise this whole enterprise fund because now we have a new contract with a company and all these numbers have to be revised so it can reflect the true meaning of an enterprise fund.
So this ordinance tonight doesn't need to reflect the enterprise fund anymore?
No, sir. Just, the only thing I have to say, the name of the fund, when I bring back the budget itself, it's going, on the enterprise fund, it's going to have that name with it too. So it's ready. Now, if you want to do it as a council, say it's enterprise, that's fine too. It's just going to be done anyway.
Okay.
Well, I just want to say something. I'm going to abstain from voting because I want to wait till we get the report before I make a decision.
So which report, Ms.
The one that
Solis?
we're getting from the consultant?
Oh, you're talking about, sit down with us, talk about budget numbers and revenue?
Right.
Well, he's going
Because
to
what
sit.
if these figures are going to change and then we're going to have to go back and do something else?
Well, we need to start funding the operation though.
Yes.
We've got employees we have to pay, we've got contracts that we need to pay. So we would like to get those out of the Parks Department into this fund so we can start truing up those numbers that are purely costing the golf course. So what we're continuing to work on is the finalizing that budget. You're talking about what we'll present to you on August 1. Is that report you're
Right,
talking
because
about?
isn't going to
Okay.
change some of these things?
It might.
It might, but we'd
It's
be
not-
happy to bring it, whatever you need to see.
Yeah. Our intent is not to ask for any more money.
Well, that's
No,
Correct.
what may, huh?
Correct.
Our
That's what I'm
intent-
looking at.
What may,
Nice saying up.
what may change is, if you
Right.
go to the expenditures, some of those, we're trying to finalize those right now. So you may see something a little different on the point of sales. I think Gilbert's got a pretty good number on that, but we're meeting with,
Yeah.
again, tomorrow on that. So we're gonna fine tune those numbers
Right.
a little bit. So Gilbert's done some very good cost estimates on, what it's gonna take with the building operations, what it's gonna take for merchandise. But again, we'll be fine tuning those over the next several weeks.
Yeah, I understand. But, my question is, okay, why do we have to budget all the 442 instead of what we're just going to use to the end of this year?
Okay, good point. Then I
Okay.
come back in August. The point is, I can come back next August, y'all approve the budget in August and everything else and reallocate in October. If you want to piecemeal it,
Just in case you have something, I know we don't have very much left over, past the,
right. I just want to present a budget to you, say, I think
know.
for the next 6 months, I didn't want to piecemeal it because I said, well, what happened before, what happened before? I just want to show the whole picture laid out, transparency, whatever you want to call it. But this, I think, is what's doable for the next 6 months. How we cut and slice it is, of course, your decision, but I'm suggesting, why don't we just put the 422? I'd be happy to give you a monthly report on it where everything's status is, but it just makes it flow easier. Now, if you want to piecemeal it, then I just take half now, I come back in August, you do the other half. It's whatever your council wants to do. I just try to show the whole picture itself. But definitely, I'm going to come back in August and show you revised, because I'll have new revenues in there, modify some of the expenditures. this is something just to show you for the next 6 months, start going, start moving forward. And
I
I'll be happy
understand
to.
what you're doing. I mean, it's half a dozen of one, six of another. It doesn't matter how you do it, but we just need to account for it separately and go ahead and fund it. And we're funding that 442 represents y'all's best estimates on what you need right now. And then, yeah, it rolls over. It's an enterprise fund. It rolls over into your next budget. You'll change it, adjust it as part of that process, right?
That's right. Just keep in mind.
This is what we said we were gonna do, and it's gonna take money. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be
You're absolutely
sarcastic
right.
to anyone, but
This
this is
fu-
exactly what we set out to do.
This
So-
fund is no different than any other fund that you'll have governance over, general fund at the end of the year. You'll have approval all over it. I'm just trying to facilitate it to move it a little faster. If council overall feels like they want to do separate, it's your call.
If you happen to have cart lease revenue for $442,000, that'd be great, but that is not gonna happen. But you'll discover revenue along in there to help
Well,
offset some of this.
We're showing the cart shed revenue.
I
right
saw it
now.
on there. I saw the
Absolutely. I'm
revenue.
taking whatever dollars I can find now.
I want to say one thing real quick. I'll make it very clear to people. There is no change of course here in the public's eye. This is a temporary closure. We're on a mission here to get it back up and running. And I don't think this council, I haven't seen any indication that that's changing. Okay, right? I mean, okay. I just want to make that real clear. Sometimes I've done this long enough to know things get twisted around. I don't want 12 emails tomorrow, with a different, so,
Yeah,
very good.
we have a target open date and we're working hard toward it and,
Okay,
so.
okay. Good questions, council. Do y'all have-
Absolutely.
We do have a motion second. Is there any other discussion or questions? No? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign?
I
Okay.
abstained.
And one abstention. Okay. Thank you, council. Thank you, Gilbert. So we have one item on the consent agenda, section D.
Thank you. Section D1, approval of minutes of the special meetings of June 26, 2017, and June 27th, 2017, and the regular meeting of July 5th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that passes. E1.
E1 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an unimproved property contract to purchase 144 acres of land off State Highway 185 in the amount of $504,000 plus closing costs from Anthony and Dorothy Daniel to be used to expand the city's landfill and declaring an effective date.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion? Any questions? Daryl's ready
Just
to
here
go.
to answer questions.
Okay. Seeing no questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Thank you, council. So we have city manager reports.
I
Is
think
there, do you want to deviate from the order, or is there any reason to? We're going to go ahead and get text dot.
text dot done if you don't
Yeah.
mind. And I think Julie was going to introduce the topic.
Okay.
Good evening, council. I'm going to give a brief introduction of the project. And since it is an MPO project, I'd also like to introduce our new MPO coordinator. This is Mr. Larry Baden. He started approximately 2 weeks ago, and we're very excited to have him on staff. He has over 20 years of transportation experience. So normally he would be giving you this presentation or introduction tonight, but we didn't want to throw him at it quite so soon since it's only been 2 weeks. So we're very excited to have him
Thank
on
you.
board.
Welcome. Yeah.
So as you know, this project is a TxDOT project that is supported by the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO, by its inclusion in the 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which I have passed out the project sheet. That's an excerpt from that plan. Of course, the MPO does direct large roadway projects through this long-term planning effort of the Metropolitan Planning, or the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The Navarro Corridor has been in that plan for approximately 20 years. It first was included in the plan in discussions of capacity. And over the past 10 years, that has shifted from Navarro corridor capacity to Navarro corridor safety. And that's what brings us here tonight. About 10 years ago, we also had the Navarro median on the north side of town that was also included in the MTP. And so now we're discussing the median, proposed median for the south side of beginning at Loop 463 all the way down to Airline Street. So with that, I would like to introduce Jeffrey Vinklarik, who is the Director of Transportation and Development for the TxDOT Yoakum District.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. I'm going to have Julie actually walk me through the slides, and I'm going to kind of just give you all a background about the project through this presentation, but we'll actually go through the schematic and walk through the whole project about what it's going to look like. This first slide here is just TxDOT works very closely with the Victoria MPO. They have voted on this project within their next 4-year plan, and we are working with them to design this project and prepare it for construction. So we'll go to the next slide. The information on that is on Victoria's website if you want to look further on that. This slide talks about Navarro Street and the highest volume intersections actually in the city of Victoria. As you can see, the column on the left shows how Navarro Street has a lot of traffic and has some of the highest volume intersections within the city. Some statistics there, 8 out of the 10 highest volume intersections are on Navarro Street, and 11 out of the top 20 intersections with the most crashes are also on Navarro Street. Next slide. And Julie did mention the project that's north of Loop 463. That project was constructed at the end of 2005 and in 2006. That project went from north of Loop 463 to Broadmoor. And if you can see on the data there, prior to construction of that median, for, I guess the data there is 3 years, 8 months, there was 891 crashes. And then we pulled data after the installation of that median, and that data was about 4 years worth of data, and there was about 568. And it was a reduction of about 35% of crashes after the installation of that median. This next slide here talks about the current crashes on Navarro, and those go from 2013 to 2016. And along Navarro, we have 237 reported crashes in that period of time. I did look at that, and out of those 237 of them, 69 of those were left turn movements, which is about 25% of the accidents were left turns, which would hopefully be prevented by a raised median. Next slide. The project purpose and need, what we're trying to do and the problems we're trying to address, we're looking at improving safety, number one, increasing mobility, reducing crashes. And the problems, it's the mobility and safety due to the increase in traffic volumes and the total number of crashes also trying to reduce. The scope of the project would approximately consist of 1,400 feet of raised median along Navarro. That raised median would vary between 2.5 feet, where you have your left turn lanes, it would be narrow, to 17 feet wide, where you wouldn't have the left turn lanes. And that median would be approximately 8 inches tall, which is kind of a curb height. And left turn lanes would be constructed in the median at various locations for turning movements. Project location map, this would pick up from the current median that we have out there today at Loop 463 and continue south for approximately 3 miles to Airline. Project schedule, we are currently right now in the preliminary design phase of it, summer of 2017. Environmental decision, we're looking at about a year to about 2018 to kind of get through that. And somebody did bring that up and says, what do you need an environmental on a median? But environmental, there's a lot of public involvement. Public involvement is dealt with the environmental process. And when you're dealing with access like we're doing on this project, that's part of what we call the environmental process, and that's what we'll be going through now. Final design of it, we're looking at a little over a year from now after we get through the public involvement and the environmental, so it'd be fall of 2018. And then possible begin construction could be 2019 or 2020. What we've kind of done so far, I kind of wanted to catch everybody up to speed. We have had a stakeholder meeting. It was held on April 5th at the Victoria County Health Department. Letters were sent out to adjacent property owners, and we had pretty good attendance at that meeting. We gave them contact information, so if they had questions or feedback, they could get in contact with us. We've also had project team meetings. Those were held with our project partners to receive feedback and recommendations from those. Recommendations were received from the City of Victoria, Victoria MPO, Victoria Police, EMS, as well as fire departments. From those, the stakeholder meeting and the feedback from our project partners, some of the things we took away from kind of the original layout. We have added some things to it. We've since added 2 mid-block openings to kind of relieve congestion at the signalized intersections. And those were added at Rosebud Avenue and Industrial Drive, as well as Cozy Circle. We've also added some signalized intersection at Morning Glory, which would include pedestrian crosswalks. And what goes along with adding a signal along that corridor, we'd have to look at timing along that ties that signal into the rest of them. And another big upgrade we're considering or looking at putting on this project would be improving the illumination along the corridor, which is a big deal from my understanding of actually upgrading it to LEDs and possibly adding illumination to really light up the corridor. An open house will be hosted in August 2017 to get public input, so we're looking at about a month away. Have not tied down that exact date yet, but that's what we're kind of looking at. So now we'll get actually into the schematic and I guess the nuts and bolts of this. Looking at where you're looking at the left side of the screen there is actually, it's tying into the current raised median that's out there today. And I'll start working my way from left to right across the screen. The first.
Gotta find the mouse, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're moving. Let's move. All right, so again, the median picks up there at the existing median we have today. And moving south along Navarro, the first opening we're proposing is at Kelly Drive and Huvar Street. It's at a signalized intersection with turn lanes in both directions. We'll keep moving south. The next one would be at Guy Grant, which is also a signalized intersection with turn lanes. Continuing to move south at HEB and Whispering Creek Street would be, again, a signalized intersections with the break or the openings with turn lanes there as well. Moving a little bit further south, we have a left turn lane that is not at a signalized, and this is the first one you'll see, and you'll see a few more of these. These actually allow the left turn in, but does not allow the left turn out. It allows the movement in, but again, the movements coming out would have to take a right out, so they wouldn't have to cross 3 lanes of traffic to make the left. Moving further south, the next one is at a signal at Salem Road and Topaz Drive. Has turn lanes as well there. Continuing south is at Sam Houston Drive, where you would also have a left turn lane. And then you'll have to move down. Slide all the way to the left, and that'll pick up at Sam Houston. Again, Sam Houston will have it both ways, the left turn lane. Sliding further south is where we talk about the installation of the new signal at Morning Glory. Morning Glory currently is unsignalized today, but looking at the length of where we really had from Sam Houston all the way to Mockingbird, it was a pretty good stretch in there, and emergency management and a few of the other partners in the project felt that would be an added bonus to have that there and keep the access. Moving further south there, we have Mockingbird, a signalized intersection that we would have the openings. The next one there is Cozy Circle, and that's again from feedback we had at our stakeholder meeting. of actually adding a left turn lane there. Again, this is not a signalized intersection, so it would be a left turn in only, and a right turn would have to be maneuvered out of Cozy Circle. The next intersection is Crestwood there, which is a signalized intersection that would have the openings at. And then when you get down to Rosebud Industrial, this is a little unique here. This would have left turn lanes each direction, again, left in only. You'd have to make a right coming out of Rosebud or Industrial Drive. And then moving to the end of the project is where the median would end, and that's at Airline. So that's the kind of schematic we're looking at and the kind of a layout of the project. I think we had one more slide. I really don't think it was a whole lot. I'll bring it. Oh, you got it there. Good. We are again looking at our open house for the public and everybody in August. Again, the date has not been set. We, I think, have been talking to Victoria ISD, the conference center there. We're looking at possible times of 4:30 to 6:30. More information on this project will continue to be posted there at www.texdot.gov, and you use the keyword Navarro Street Business 77 median would take you to that website. And then there's my name and number for anybody that has questions or comments on the project.
I have some questions. So TxDOT would be the entity that pays for everything, signals, any side road work that needs to be done to accommodate new signals, striping.
The MPO is an MPO project, so it's funded by Victoria MPO, but TxDOT is designing the project and would be constructing it.
Okay. And then what's your actual median design look like for all these new panhandler locations?
Very similar to north of
Can we
Loop
change that?
463.
Can you change that?
We're in the preliminary design. Yes, sir. Anything can be changed right now.
You make it where it's uncomfortable to stand at intersections?
I think we've kind of talked about that. I don't remember exactly. There is some reasons, I think, why you can't do that, but I'd have to check into that.
I've seen a few locations and I have photos.
Where it makes it uncomfortable?
Yes, in Houston. I can share, I think I have shared those at one point or another, but I'll share them with whoever.
Right. Mike, do you remember exactly why we talked about the reason for not putting the uncomfortable median?
There was concern about ADA issues. So it's something we can take a deeper look at.
Yeah, we can definitely look at it, but again, like the project y'all had on Ben Wilson, I mean, there is a lot of stuff with ADA, but I think we could possibly accommodate ADA with making it uncomfortable for panhandlers as well.
I'm sorry, I'm not necessarily advocating we do it. I've seen it, and for the public, it's just it's tactile. It's difficult to stand there forever because it's an uneven surface somewhat. Anyway, I think you may have seen, I showed those. That's been a long time though. So.
I'd really like to see that incorporated.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Public just needs to know that Navarro is not a city street, right? It is a state highway, road, whatever you want to call it. So just for that. I had a question. Let me think for a minute. You said two cuts. There were two changes to the plan as a result of feedback. Which ones were they? I didn't want to interrupt you a while ago.
Those were Rosebud Industrial.
Okay, okay.
As well as Cozy Circle.
Okay.
Those were two by citizen input at the
Yeah.
last meeting on April.
Industrial is at Atzenhofer's?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
All right, Community Development Block Grant.
Gilbert just told me I have 5 seconds. Good evening, council. It's tonight I want to present to you the draft one-year action plan for next year's Community Development Block Grant Program. We'll try to keep it brief. We have a total funding amount available in the amount of $533,000 and change. That consists of our 2017 allocation of $512,000, which very surprisingly is about $8,000 above this year's grant. Nobody expected that. and I can't explain it. But we got about $8,000 more than we expected to this year, or next year, plus about $20,000 in reprogram funds. These funds are going to be divided among 6 CDBG activities. The first is affordable housing. There's only one program under affordable housing, and that's mortgage assistance, funded at about $15,000. Neighborhood programs, we have demolition, funded at $48,000 and change. We also have public services. Keep in mind, or as a reminder, the public services category has a 15% cap. We can only spend 15% of our grant on public services. We have proposed, I believe, 7 public service agency contracts with the agencies that are listed in your packet for a total of a little over $82,000. Under public facilities, we have one project that's been requested by the Boys and Girls Club, their facility improvement project in the amount of $120,000. That project would repair and update restrooms, a classroom, and several other areas within the existing facility. It'll also include HVAC installation in their dance and weight rooms and some basketball court improvements. Under public improvements, we have 2 projects. One, and these are both, I think, very exciting projects. One is the Hopkins Neighborhood Park Project, funded in the amount of $145,000. That project will include a concrete walking trail around the perimeter of Hopkins Park that will also tie the park in with Hopkins Elementary School and the Boys and Girls Club that are both adjacent. It'll also include lighting, solar security lighting along the trail. The second public improvement project, or public facility or improvement project, is the Rio Grande Houston Highway Street Lighting Improvement Project, funded at a little over $32,000. This involves the installation of new street lights and upgrades to street lights along Rio Grande Street and Houston Highway, the entire length from Navarro to Sam Houston, to improve vehicular and pedestrian safety. Our final category, as usual, is program administration, $92,500, which is about a $6,000 reduction compared to the current year. We will be back in front of you August 1st, 2 weeks from now, for a public hearing on this plan and a resolution approving next year's one-year action plan. I'll be happy to address any questions.
How about, John, are we going to be putting LED lights on the Rio Grande?
And some of them, I believe, can be upgraded to LED. I don't think we're going to be able to do LEDs all the way, if my memory is correct, Ken, or are they all LEDs?
Since AEP maintains those lights, they have not switched over to LED yet. We're going to upgrade the wattage to those lights, which will improve the lighting. Oh, the ones that we own at the intersections, we will upgrade those to LED if they're not already.
Okay, so you said you're going to update the wiring?
The lighting that's already at the
Oh, the
intersections,
wattage,
at the
okay.
signalized intersections, they are, if they're not already LED, we'll upgrade those.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great.
That's going to make a huge improvement over in that area.
Yep.
So, with lighting.
Some parts of Rio Grande that you can't see the people when they cross the street.
Okay,
Right
is that
back
all
to
you
you.
have, John? Yeah, I think I do, and I agree with everyone on the street lighting improvements. You know, it's more pedestrian safety. It's really, I was happy to see that. Thank you. I think y'all did a good job of picking there, and I know some of the recipients are here, and appreciate all the work that they do in the community. Well done, thank you.
That is a data-intensive program, and the recipients do a great job providing the data that we have to have for that program.
Jumping through all the hoops and
They
filling
do.
out the
They do a
paperwork.
good
and
job.
Yeah. Okay, now we have one item left if y'all still want to do it. I think staff wants us to. We have a work session
Yes.
on budget. Does anybody need a break or anything? It's been 2 hours.
Can I?
Okay, let's take a quick 5-minute break. Can we put the the clock on the screen and start it, please? Thank you.
Did you bring yours? Okay.
Budget cuts, I'm out of water.
Well, here, you have, I don't.